Isagi Yoichi is the main character of Blue Lock. Being such, we see him grow the most and embodies the philosophy of the series the best. I think there are 4 things that he applies into his own life, which we can also emulate, that will help us improve ourselves. Since there's quite a lot of depth to a lot of these topics, I'll also give you some long-form books that you can read about. So this is also a list of books that Isagi would read if he were real. I'll begin each section of the video talking about the broad philosophy, and then break it down into practical psychology. You'll be getting a broad strokes view of the forest, and then a particular view of the trees. The 4 areas I'll be talking about are grit, ego, adaptability, and spatial awareness. Without any further ado, this is the ultimate guide on how to become like Isagi. Grit. In the book Can't Hurt Me, David Goggins talks about how he transformed from being a fat, lazy person facing legitimate struggles to becoming one of the most successful physical specimens on the planet. He successfully completed not only SEAL training, but the US Army Ranger School and the Air Force Tactical. One of the only people to do it. He also holds the record for the most pull-ups in 24 hours. If you ever need a kick to get you motivated to do better, then this is a great book. And David Goggins in general is just a great guy. What Blue Lock does is that it really kicks at the players, no pun intended, and forces them to get better. Being in a confined space and forcing them to play well or else they won't have a chance to play on the Japanese team, I mean, that's going to be a strong drive for anyone to get better. While we don't have anything like this in real life, it still is a testament to the power of mental fortitude. Mental toughness is a massive part of both Goggins and Blue Lock's philosophy. Another key aspect of Goggins' philosophy is holding yourself accountable. This is very similar to how you are being held accountable for your play in Blue Lock. If you don't play good enough, you risk being kicked out. Beyond that, Goggins also talks about how it's not just about not failing, it's about actively succeeding. He talks about taking people's souls in a metaphorical way in the book. About getting the promotion you think you deserve and being such an undeniable force that cannot be ignored. In Blue Lock, this is similar to how in every selection, you have to prove yourself above your teammates. You have to prove to your opponents that you're elite, and that you have to score more goals than everyone else. This proves that you are an undeniable force that stands out from the rest. A lot of the mindset stuff Goggins talks about is in Blue Lock, only with Blue Lock it's externally imposed, and with Goggins it is internally imposed. If you need some kind of base for not only motivating yourself, but becoming a disciplined person, this book is great. And now we're going to get into some practical tips. Here are the practical tips that I have to increase your grit. Write down the factors ostensibly or legitimately limiting your success on a piece of paper or on computer. Set specific goals for the next day and write them on sticky notes and place them in the mirror. Make sure you hold yourself accountable for all the small steps required to achieve those goals. Maybe even add more sticky notes with that stuff on it. Regularly engage in discomfort. Step out of your comfort zone. List and confront uncomfortable activities, especially those beneficial to your personal growth. Turn negativity into motivation. Strategically visualize success. Anticipate the challenges so that when they actually do happen, when you actually do have to face them, it won't be so bad. Upon succeeding in things, remember to write down your successes. That way, when you're struggling again in the future, you can look back at your successes and realize that you can still do more. And finally, try and actively increase your limits just by 1% every day. The fitness influencer Greg Doucette likes to say train harder than last time. This basically stands for do 1 more push-up than last time, read 1 more page of that book than last time, study for 1 more minute than last time, etc, etc. Ego. Egoism is a philosophy of self-interest. It's not a philosophy that I fully subscribe to, but it does have some helpful elements to it. I believe that being self-interested to a degree, probably a higher degree than you would think, and of course in a specific context, is actually a good thing. What it does is that it inspires you to be the best that you can be. When you believe that you're the best and you want that externally validated in some way, you're gonna work really hard to make sure that that's the case. I know the show kinda gets crazy later on, but Bakugo from My Hero Academia and Vegeta from Dragon Ball, you can't deny that they have massive egos. And you also can't deny the fact that their ego pushed them to become much stronger than they otherwise would have been. On top of what I was saying before, when you believe that you deserve more, you will believe that you are necessarily capable of more. And when you believe that you are capable of more, there's nothing really stopping you from actually going out and achieving what you know that you're worth other than your own efforts. When you play basketball and you yell something like, "He can't guard me," you're all the more motivated to make that statement true. Because if you get shut down the next possession, that's going to look extremely embarrassing. On top of that, your opponent, the defense, is going to be very offended at the fact that you said that, and they're going to play defense even harder now. So use that ego of yours as motivation to prove that you are the best. As for the practical steps in achieving this, please apply this with a dose of self-control and try and contain it, try and compartmentalize it within your competition. Exercise prudence. I like to think about this like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Michael Jordan was hyper-competitive in everything, and it probably messed up some of his relationships. Kobe Bryant was similarly competitive, but he was only competitive in basketball. Anyways, with that disclaimer, let's get on to the practical steps. Think of someone ahead of you, or perhaps think of your idealized self. Whenever you feel lazy or unmotivated, think about that person. What do you think they are doing right now? What do you think they would be doing if they were in your situation? What have they done that you haven't done? What do they have that you don't have? Meditate on that for a bit, but not too long. Use that image in your head to fuel you to work harder. Get mad at the fact that he's doing better than you, that you're not living up to him, and do what you need to do at this very moment to fix it. If you're using another person, I recommend learning everything you can about that person. Their work habits, their personality, their relationships, etc. Be in a pseudo-parasocial relationship with them, and use that person as a constant reminder of where you want to be, and more importantly, where you can be. This person in your head wakes up at 5 AM and works without excuse. He doesn't cower in the face of opposition, etc., etc. Use that anger as a source of energy to passionately fight to become who you want to be. Be annoyed at the fact that this person is doing better than you, like Baro to Isagi. Write down what this person would do even when they're feeling unmotivated, when they're feeling challenged, and make sure that you consistently do those things in order for you to be better than that person. This is something that I've actually done myself with people I know. While I'm not where I want to be yet, it has certainly helped me strive to reach them. And as a reminder, make sure you compartmentalize this drive into competition. Don't let it spill over into other areas of life. This is how you use ego to win. If you want more information on how to balance competitive drive with morality, my book, Muscular Christianity, gets into that. When you think of Christianity, you don't really think of competitiveness. You're thinking like, okay, be humble, be slow to anger, that sort of stuff. And while that's not wrong, oftentimes it's improperly situated. So my book puts all of that into its proper context and shows you how to use that competitive drive virtuously. So if you're interested, the link is in the description. For some really wild reason, Amazon took the ebook off the Kindle store. I'm trying to get that back right now, but as of right now, there's only the audiobook and the physical book. Which, most people who bought my book use those anyways, but yeah, the ebook isn't out right now, but it should change hopefully soon. I'll leave you with this charge from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. Now is the time to get serious about living your ideals. How long can you afford to put off who you really want to be? Your nobler self cannot wait any longer. Put your principles into practice, now. Stop the excuses and the procrastination. This is your life. You aren't a child anymore. The sooner you get yourself on your spiritual program, the happier you will be. The longer you wait, the more vulnerable you will be to mediocrity and feel filled with shame and regret, because you know you are capable of better. From this instant on, vow to stop disappointing yourself. Separate yourself from the mob. Decide to be extraordinary and do what you need to do, now. Another way to develop your ego is to look like a king. When you look kingly, you embody kingly traits due to the interconnection of the mind and the body. One way to look like royalty is to buy jewelry. This brings us to today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Forged London. Use my code APOLY for 20% off all jewelry. That's UPAULI for 20% off all jewelry at checkout. Adaptability. The Brain That Changes Itself is a book about the adaptability of our brains. It talks about how people with various mental or learning disabilities use novel psychological strategies to overcome those obstacles. We are capable of completely relearning how we see the world. In the last page of Gandhi's autobiography, he wrote, "I must reduce myself to zero." This reminds me of how Isagi is able to constantly adapt and become better. Throughout the show, we see Isagi completely dismantle and reassemble the way he plays soccer on the fly. This is similar to how our brains can work in the book that I previously mentioned. We are capable of incredible changes if we supply our brains with the proper environment. If you think about it, The brain that you're using right now has been inherited by people with all sorts of disparate occupations. One of your ancestors was probably a farmer or a hunter. If our brains and bodies are capable of becoming that, they are probably also capable of adapting to other stimulus. The neuroplasticity of our brains is truly incredible and can be used to help us not only improve, but overcome specific challenges. By applying this to ourselves, we can become infinitely adaptable and become a threat to whatever we put our minds to. The book also talks about how working on weaker areas can help your brain improve as a whole, often because we can devote more energy into focusing on our strengths. There was a lawyer who had a weak Broca's area in the brain. The Broca's area of your brain is basically responsible for articulating speech and pronouncing words. Once he worked on that area of his brain and fixed it, he went on to spend more of his energy focusing on the actual intellectual parts of being a lawyer and became even more successful. In Blue Lock, we see Isagi have weak areas of his brain like his athleticism and his one-on-one plays. As he improves in those, he is able to better use his spatial awareness. Not only because he could dedicate more brain energy into that, but because he was able to incorporate his spatial awareness with his athleticism and one-on-one plays. So, if you're looking for a book on adaptability, this is the best one I've read. So how can you practically apply this into your life? Well, as corny as it sounds, having an open mind and believing in yourself makes you more adaptable. It's a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. There have been studies showing that those who believe that they can change, those who believe that they have what's called an internal locus of control, are actually more adaptable and able to overcome novel challenges when compared to the people who believe in an external locus of control, which is the belief that your brain is rigid and cannot be changed, that you're just helpless to the whims of fate. Similar studies show that those who believe in free will do better in almost every life outcome than those who believe in determinism. Free will is the idea that we have our own wills that we can control, and determinism is the belief that everything is predetermined by your brain and upbringing, both of which you have little if not no control over. The next thing you can do is learn a lot. In the book Range by David Epstein, he talks about having a wide bank of knowledge from ever disparate fields. He talks about how this can be an enduring force to help you face the vicissitudes of our dynamic world. When you know more about seemingly unrelated things, you are able to think about your primary focus in more dynamic ways. Another thing you can do is be open-minded. Embrace the fact that you could be wrong and that there are many possible ways of doing things. Isagi was able to adapt because he was open to the fact that even his most foundational beliefs in soccer could be wrong. Spatial awareness. The last one here is on spatial awareness. Spatial awareness is defined as being aware of your surroundings and your position relative to them. In a lot of sports, this is very important as you need to know where your teammates are in relation to the object of your goal. This is important especially for chess players, gymnasts, point guards playing basketball, and of course strikers playing soccer. The only book I can think of that somewhat talks about this is the book Spark by John Rady. It talks about how exercise can improve your brain. At some point in the book, they talk about how dynamic sports like gymnastics, skateboarding, and parkour can improve your proprioception, which is just a fancy way of saying how you understand your body in space. So I'd recommend giving that a browse. I remember the chapter on ADHD specifically talking about this. So now let's really get into the practical psychology of how you can improve your own spatial awareness. One of the best ways to develop spatial awareness is to engage in activities that require you to visualize and manipulate objects in space. For example, playing specific games that involve you manipulating objects in space. Here are some activities that can help your spatial awareness. Playing strategy games, particularly chess. Completing jigsaw puzzles. When you turn the pieces around and try and fit them together, you're using your spatial awareness. When you look at the colors and see how they can match and flow, that's also using your spatial awareness. Playing video games can also help your spatial awareness. Games like Tetris, Minecraft, or first-person shooters like Call of Duty or Fortnite. I talk about this a lot in my video on gaming and the brain. I kind of alluded to this before, but practicing dynamic sports like gymnastics, parkour, and skateboarding, basically doing exercises where you're upside down and flipping around a lot, are really good. If you regularly go to the gym and lift weights like I do, try doing calisthenics every once in a while. Engage in activities that require a lot of navigation, like hiking, but make sure you don't use your phone or a GPS to help you navigate. Try and do it yourself. Of course, if you get lost, then you can use that as a failsafe, but try not to use it. And finally, learning a skill that involves distance control, like archery. These activities are general and can help you develop your spatial awareness by challenging your brain to think in new and different ways. They improve your ability to visualize and mentally manipulate objects in space. It also helps you understand distance, which is crucial for spatial awareness. And that'll be it for me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out my other Blue Lock videos. And I'll catch you all next time. Alright, peace.